Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Patrick God, and if you don't know me yet, well, I mainly create web development tutorials on this channel here, and mainly this is actually about .NET, .NET 6 and Blazor, but many of you have asked for an Angular tutorial, meaning combining Angular with a .NET Web API, and this is now the tutorial for you. Angular 14 came out a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks, I guess 2 or 3 weeks, so now is the perfect time, I guess, to have a look at the full stack, meaning we will create a simple Angular front end, an Angular client. The user interface will be made with Angular and Visual Studio Code, and then we will call a web API. So this is also one thing we will create here in this tutorial, a .NET 6 web API, and combine this with Entity Framework Core and the SQL Server database. So again, the full stack, all CRUD operations will be covered there. We will build a little form with Angular where we can create superheroes. I know that you can do this in the tutorials and the documentations of Angular as well. The Tour of Heroes tutorial, for instance. This is actually not really inspired by this thing. Apparently, many people like superheroes. At least I like superheroes as well. But anyways, we will create a little superhero database, meaning we will have one table, one entity with the name, the first name, the last name, and the place of a superhero, of course also the ID, and then we will get these superheroes from the database. First we will start with mock data, so this is not stored in the database, but I think this is a good way to learn all that stuff, to learn these concepts. So we will build up on this thing. First we start with the Angular client, where you have a little tiny table with a great design where you can see the heroes, and then we will move the mock heroes to the web API, and then finally to the database, update it and delete it. So this is what you're going to learn. And one more thing before we start: if you like this tutorial and really learn something, this would be really nice, then I would really appreciate it if you click the like button and maybe even subscribe to my channel. It does make a difference. Thank you so much for now 19,000 subscribers. I love every single one of you. Thank you so much for that. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get a notification for new videos. And also maybe interesting for you is the newsletter. I promise I won't spam you. At max I send an email once a week, but with that you get these videos here earlier in your inbox, and also access to upcoming courses. For instance, the .NET Web Developer Bootcamp, where we will create lots of .NET 6 stuff or .NET 7 stuff. Let's see, with a web API, for instance, with Blazor, and also with Git and a little bit of Scrum, DevOps. All that stuff is going to be covered in that course. So maybe this is something for you. And the last thing, and then we will actually start with the tutorial. Thank you so much for all your support. Today it's a hot tea, no coffee. Tea is also great. Yep, kind of hot. And if you want to support me as well, then just check the links in the video description. You may know the drill. Toddler is asleep, and this is the only time I get to make these videos, and coffee and tea helps with that. So thank you very much, and now enjoy the tutorial. All right, you see an empty folder here. That's because I want to create two different applications in this tutorial, one for the client and one for the API. And for the Angular client, for the user interface, I want to use Visual Studio Code. And for the API, we will use Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition. Good way to develop that kind of stuff, I guess, because, for instance, you could also switch the UI, and if you want to build a mobile application later, then you can still use the same API, right? So this is how we're going to do this here now. Again, I created a folder called Superhero NG for Angular, and now we just right-click here, open with code to start with our user interface. And in the terminal now, we can build our new application, our new client application with Angular. But first, let's check the version. So with ng version, you see the installed Angular CLI version, which is 14.0.2. And regarding nodes, we've got 16 and so on, and NPM 8 and so on. And this is what you have to install first, right? So if you did not do this, then please Google for Node, for instance, and then just download the latest version 16. And regarding Angular, let's have a quick look here. There it is. I assume you already know this, but if not, you have to run this command. But also, if you're using Windows like me and you want to use the PowerShell, you also have to run this command here. So please go to angular.io, guide setup-local, and then run this thing to get Angular and to be able to run the commands, because this terminal here is a PowerShell. As you can see here, we can also open a git bash, a command prompt, and so on. but the default way here is the PowerShell. So I would say we create our client application. Ng-new is the right command for that, and we call this SuperHero UI, for instance, for user interface. Yes, we use routing and we use CSS, and now we're getting our client application. All right, we're done. This took way longer than I expected, but this is the node world, right? So this is how this works. We've got our folder here. Now let me reopen Visual Studio Code real quick in the proper folder here. So right click, open one of the file. Let me open the folder, open with code. There we are. So now we've got our Angular application. We've got our typical source folder. I really don't want to go over everything here. This should not be an introduction to Angular. And well, I guess you know the drill. You've got your package JSON, package log JSON, and so on. But the important part for our Angular client here is the source folder with the app folder, assets, environment, and so on. And of course, the index.html. Again, I think you know the drill. This is not a beginner's course about Angular. We just want to connect Angular 14 now with the .NET 6 Web API, backend, and all that in one big tutorial. So that's why you're here, right? First thing I want to do here in the app folder is create more folders, meaning the components folder, the models folder, and the services folder, because we will do exactly that. We will create a model, a service, and one component. I really want to keep this simple here. So right click the app folder, and then again, components, that's the first one. Then we've got our models, and this will be our superhero model. If you watched my other tutorials, then you know what we're going to do here. But if not, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. What I want to do is build a teeny tiny superhero database, right? So a database which will be a SQL Server Express database in the end, where we just store superheroes with an ID, a name, the first name, the last name, and the place. No big relationship or anything. I did this in my other tutorials. Please have a look, for instance, at the EF Core and EditHero Core All Relationships tutorial, for instance. I think this is the correct name. There you will also see how to build all the relationship types, meaning one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. But this is not the topic for today. Today we create our Angular application. And let's start now with our model. Or first, let's run the app maybe, so we see that this actually works. So ngserve-o for open shall be the right command here. Take some time again, and then we are good to go. All right, there it is on my other screen. This is the default Angular application, and we will remove everything and then have a teeny tiny page and a small form where we can then use all the CRUD operations for the superhero, and it won't look nice. Can tell you that already. But anyways, now the model. So let's close this and create a new file here. This shall be called super-hero.ts. And one more thing, I think I forgot to mention this. I've got one extension here, the Angular language service. This is pretty handy. Extension provides a rich editing experience for Angular templates, both inline and external templates, including yada yada yada. Okay, so this, well, maybe you want to install this as well. And now regarding the class, looks like that. Export class superhero. And now again, we've got an ID. It can be nullable. Then a name, which is a string. The first name, which is a string. Last name. It is late again, as always, guys. Last name and the place. Okay, so this is our model. And now I would say we already create our service. So this thing then will make the web service called, but in the beginning we return mock data just to see how this works with Angular in itself, and then we will add the API there. So to do that, we open the terminal again and go to source app and then services, and with ng-gs for generate service. Maybe let's get some space here. So ng-gs and then SuperHero, we create our service, but I also want to skip the test files. So this shall be the command ng generate service super-hero. There it is now. This is our beautiful service here. And now if we would want to make, yeah, that's correct, a web service call, meaning using the web API later on, then we would have to use the HTTP client module here, and we have to add this thing later. But for now, let's just create one method called getSuperHeroes and return a mock hero. All right, so this should be everything for now, and then we will call this method and see, does this already work? So this is the first, well, it's not really boilerplate code, it's already a bit more, I guess. But anyways, let's just do this. So public get superheroes. All right, returns an array of superheroes. And now let me get one hero, or create one hero, a new superhero. I know I could have used a constructor here, but I don't care. So ID is 1, name Spider-Man. It's a great guy. First name is Peter. Last name Parker. And then the place is New York City. And then we return this hero as an array. That's why I use the brackets here. JavaScript and TypeScript. Yeah, no comment about that. So this is the method now. And now let's just see, let's just get this hero and display it in a list, in a table, and we do that in the app components. So first we remove everything here for the HTML, and then let's first call this method and log this then in the console. So here in the component.ts actually, we now add our heroes. So this is a superhero array. We initialize it as an empty array. And then for the constructor, we inject the private superhero service, our superhero service. All right. And then on init, so with ng on init, let's also call this. So our heroes then are this superhero service get superheroes, and then we just log them first. All right, and this is how we can actually already test this. So back to the terminal, run this again with ng-serve, and let's see. All right, there we are, empty page, but we open the console and there's an array and there is our hero. Let's run this again. Works, nice. Okay, so this was easy. Now let's create a little table in our app component HTML. Yes, a typical old school table where we just display our heroes. So we start with a table like that. Then the header, and in here now some headings. First the name, then also the first name like that, the last name, and finally the place. And now for the body we use a tr, and here we also used a for loop, so ng-for. And now for every hero in heroes we say we've got the hero name, lowercase n of course. And let me now just copy this. First name, last name, and the place. So we've got the last name, we've got the, no, first the first name, right? That's why it's called first name. And then the last name, and finally the place. Okay, let's have a look. There it is. But we have to add something. Heroes. This heroes. Let's have a look. Let hero not in shall be off. Okay. Funny that I don't see an error here. Do I see one here? No. Everything's fine here. And now we see Spider-Man. Okay, great. So this was a little error. It is 10 o'clock almost. So let me take a sip of my tea today. All right, so this looks beautiful, right? Of course, this is not a design tutorial here. I recommend having a look at Angular material if you want me to show you something with Angular material. Maybe make this a bit more pretty or prettier. Then I can do this, of course, and just write it down in the comments below, and then I'm happy to create another tutorial. But I think for now this works. So we've got the name, the first name, the last name, and the place. And for now, we are actually already done with the first part of the client application, of the Angular client application. And now to connect this with the web API, we have to build our web API. So let's run Visual Studio. There it is, my good friend. So let's create a new project. This shall be an ASP.NET Core Web API. See that? Tested it before, Angular and Visual Studio 2022. I'm not the biggest fan. Even Visual Studio Code is nowadays not always the best editor for this. Many people use WebStorm, I guess, by JetBrains. Not sponsored, by the way, but this maybe is a great editor as well. But I am using Visual Studio Code, just so you know. I'm using still using Visual Studio Code for all the JavaScript and TypeScript stuff, actually. But for my beloved Blazor and .NET stuff, I use Visual Studio 2022. All right, so enough about that. Let's create our API in SuperHero ng, and this shall be called SuperHero API. Simply like that. All right. .NET 6 it is. Configure for HTTPS. We use controllers, and yes, let's enable OpenAPI support so that we still get Swagger to test this as well. So let's create this. There we are. Close this one. And the first thing here as well is the SuperHero class. Let's just create it right here at root level. We add a new item. Could have also selected class, but either way, this works. SuperHero. And again, we've got an ID, which is nullable actually, but this works as well. We've got a name, which is an empty string. And now let's copy this. First name, last name, and the place. First name, last name, and the place. All right, so this is now our SuperHero class. And now, similar to the UI application, first let's return a mock hero. So in our controllers folder, we create a new controller, and this shall be an empty API controller here, not an MVC controller, not an API controller with read-write actions or using Entity Framework. We will add Entity Framework manually in a couple of minutes, but for now, just an empty API controller. Click Add, and we call this SuperHeroController. Isn't this a great name? All right, and here now already we create our first method. Again, we are returning a mock character. Later we will use a DataContext with Entity Framework and SQL Server Express. So then we will need a constructor, but for now, this should work. So this will be a get method, public async task. I want to return an action result with a list of superheroes. One more bracket. Yep. And we call this get superheroes. All right. And this returns a new list of superheroes where we add a new superhero. And here now we can already give this thing a name and so on, but let me format this a little bit. Yeah, almost, I guess. Okay. Now the name, again, Spider-Man. Then we've got the first name, which is Peter. The last name, which is Parker, and the place is New York City. All right, that's it, I guess. Let's run this. And then we can test this first with Swagger UI. There it is. Superhero, try this out, hit execute, and there is Spider-Man with ID 0. Yeah, why not? Okay, and now we have to combine these two, and you can actually see here, this is the URL we have to use in Angular. So let's use this thing. And for that, I go back to Visual Studio Code, and here now, first in the environment.ts, we add the API URL, base API URL actually. Let me put this here again. So we've got HTTPS. Okay, 7020 is the port. By the way, if you want to know where the port is, we have a look at the properties and then launch settings JSON file, and there you see it, profile, superhero API, and then here you see the HTTPS URL and the HTTP URL. And one more thing, on my machine it's configured, but if you see a warning about the certificates actually, because we're using HTTPS, right, and we don't actually have a certificate that works here with Chrome, for instance, you can activate a developer certificate, but Visual Studio should ask you to do that. So I hope it does, and then you get no warning anymore that this is a not secure, you know what I mean, the not secure website or anything, application maybe. Yeah, this just as a side note. We cover that, by the way, in the Blazor e-commerce course. So if you want to have a look there, then this might be interesting for you. But I can also, I don't have it in my mind. Just ask in the comments, and then I will tell you how to do this. All right, this is the URL. Did I copy? Yeah, I copied that. Nice. And now in our superhero service, I also want to add the URL. Let's just call this URL. And this is now actually superhero. This is the controller name. And now to make this possible, we need the HTTP client module. For that, we go to the app module TS. And down here, we add HTTP client module. And we also have to manually import this. So let's copy that, and then we've got HTTP client module, but this is in Angular, common, and then HTTP. Okay, so with that, we've got our HTTP client module to be able to make web service calls in essence. And now we have to inject this here. So private let's call this HTTP client it is. And now you see it here. This is the model. This is imported, the module, and we also see the import up here. Nice. Okay. And now with our URL, let's make this private, we can actually remove this and actually also remove this here. And now we return an observable of type superhero, or with the superhero array. All right. And in here now, we just write down HTTP get. This is a HTTP get request method, right? So we want to get an array of superheroes. And regarding the URL, looks like that. String interpolation. $, and the curly braces, and then environments. This one, not the prod one, this one here. And then we get our API URL / after the curly brace. That's why I did not add it here in the API URL or here, because I want to see it here. So sometimes, you know, you forget the / in your variables maybe. So it's, for me, it's better to do it like that. And then finally the current URL here in our service. And I think that's it. Okay, so this is that. We also have to import the observable, of course. And now back to our app component. And in here now, what we want to do is we call this superhero service get superheroes subscribe with the parenthesis, of course, subscribe. Okay, that's the first thing we have to do. And now we get a result here. So this result is a superhero array. Can we just format this a little bit? Nope, doesn't want to accept my shortcut here, but this should also work. And now here we say this heroes is our result. All right, let's save this and go back to our application, which does not work. Okay, now let's have a quick, oh yeah, of course it does not work. You see it here in the network tab as well. Let's just reload. We have a course issue here, a course error that is in essence saying, hey, the source or the website that is trying to call the SuperHeroController here has not the same domain, the same URL as well, the one from the actual controller. So the client application is running on localhost 4200, the API is running on localhost 7020. And this does not work. This is a security issue here, but of course we can fix that real quick. So back to our API, to the Program.cs, and here we have to configure course just for our development application here, or our development state in essence. Now here we write builder services add course. There it is. And this gets some options, of course. So options, and then we add a policy. We can give this policy a name, like the superhero origins, because this is actually what we want to add here. And now regarding this policy, we want to add the origins and the methods and the header. So policy, almost policy with origins. And now we just allow the localhost 4200. So HTTP localhost 4200. And then we allow also any method and also any header. All right. Hope this works now. Yeah, forgot one parenthesis here, but here you can see it ensures that the policy allows any method and also any header. And now we also have to use this, and we can do that down here. App use, not user, use course, and then this is important, the name here of our policy. All right, so let's save this. Hope it's rebuilding. It is it restarting? Not sure about that. Yeah, it was, I guess, but let's just restart it again just to be sure. Now again, quick recap. Builder services add course, adds cross-origin resource sharing services to the specified iService collection. All right, so with that thing, we can accept certain origins like our client application origin here. This gets some options, and in these options, we add a policy, give this thing a name, and then with this policy, we can add the actual origins we want to accept here. It can be more, of course, so we can just, I think just with the comma, separate them and add another one. And then we also say, okay, we want to allow any HTTP request method and also any header, and then this should work. And I would say we just reload our application here, and you see this works now. Isn't that great? And also here in the network tab, this is the old one. See it here, I activated preserve lock, and this is the new one now. We get Peter Parker as Spider-Man living in New York City from our web API. Isn't that great? Okay, so that's nice. We've got the first part of our client. We've got the first part of our web API. But let's get rid of our mock characters or mock heroes or mock entities in essence, and add entity framework core, I'd say, right? So the first thing really I want to do is, or I recommend here, is also using SQL Server Express to get it. Just Google for SQL Server Express, and now here I just did it on my other screen. You see SQL Server downloads, and then you see Express. This is a free version. There's also the developer version, but I'm using the Express version. Click download now, and then the download should start. There it is, but I already have it. And after that, you can also actually Google for the SQL Server Management Studio. That's the one. I like it to manage my databases in essence, but of course you don't have to do it, right? You can also do this with Visual Studio Code, with Visual Studio 2022, and any other tool in essence. But I like the Management Studio here, so that's why I do this, and I will also use it here in this tutorial. Now let me start this thing real quick. And there it is, so that you can see how it looks and how we will use it. There it is already. We've got our databases. Of course, the SuperHero database is not here yet. This one is a database of my other course, the .NET Jumpstart course. If you want to have a look, feel free to do this. Thank you very much. But now, when you've got your SQL Server installed, we can finally start with entity framework, and the first thing we do here is actually creating a data context. So for that, we create a new folder, call this data, and now here we create a new class, call this data context, and this is then the context that will enable us to access our superheroes. Here we are inheriting from DB-Context, and with control period we get something like that. In this quick fix menu here we see the suggestion to install this package, Microsoft Entity Framework Core, and this is exactly what we need. If you do not see this, then please go to the NuGet Package Manager and install Microsoft Entity Framework Core. But we will do this anyways in a second. Just hit return and find and install latest version, because we also need 2 more packages to be able to use code first migrations. Yes, you want to rebuild. And also we need the provider for SQL Server. All right, so this is the Microsoft Entity Framework Core package. But now, again, let's also add this one here. Entity Framework Core design, shared design time components for Entity Framework Core tools. Install this. Okay, accept. And then also SQL Server. That's the one, Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server database provider for Entity Framework Core. So install this. And after that, we also need the Entity Framework Core tools. And then we're done. All right, with all the installations. But now let's have a look at the data context. All right. So first we add a constructor here so that we are done with our data context, and then we install the tools, start the migrations, and then we've got our database. And this is actually then really the boilerplate code to get everything up and running, and then we can implement all the other CRUD implementations and operations. We can implement all the other CRUD operations. Jesus, it's getting late and later, almost 10:30. All right, so public data context, and then DB context options with our data context. These are the options, and we use the base constructor here as well with the same options. So this is what we need here. And then, very important, if you want to see an entity in your database as a table, you have to add it here as a property. So this then shall be a database set, right? Database set is the correct type here of SuperHero. We call this SuperHeroes. This is the name of the table, and usually you just pluralize the name of the entity. Now we get a little warning here, all right, but we can get rid of this thing by saying this is already a set of type SuperHero. All right, so we've got the data context covered. I told you that we have to install the Entity Framework Core tools, but one more thing I want to do first is adding a connection string, because that's what we also need, so that Entity Framework knows how to connect to our database and what database to use, right? So this is done in the app settings JSON. You can do it here. You don't have to. You can do it here. You can also do it in the data context itself. But let's do it here. It's a good way. Good practice, I'd say. So connection strings is the first thing we want to add here, a new section called connection strings. And then we call this a default connection. And now this can, of course, be different in your case. But if you are using a SQL Server on the same machine you're developing right now, so it is installed locally, like in my case, then just do it like that. It's called server. This is the first part of the connection string. Localhost, // and then SQL Express. Then the database name, I just call it SuperHeroDB. And then the last thing, trusted connection. Let me close this real quick. Connection is true. All right, so server, localhost, // SQL Express, database is SuperHeroDB, and then trusted connection is true. This is the connection string. And now, as I said, the last thing are the tools. So first, let's go to our SuperHero API folder. And here we see everything we need. I did this because we have to be in this folder for the migration. And actually, we also have to stop the application. So just close this little window here. And then the application is stopped. And now here we type .NET tool install --global and then .NET-EF. And as you can see, it is already installed in my case. So what I can do is I can just uninstall it and install it again. I think there's also the update command, but this works as well. .NET tool install, and now I've got version 6.0.6. Let's double check. .NET-EF. There it is. This is Entity Framework Core, the .NET command line tools of Entity Framework Core. And here you also see the available commands, database, DBContext, and migrations. And we only need migrations and database. So let's use these, I would say. What we can do now is we can add our first migration with .NET EF migrations add, and then let's call this initial for our very first migration. It is building, and I hope this is actually not true. SuperHero API doesn't reference Microsoft Entity Framework Core design. Let's have a quick look here. Actually here, oh, it's not saved. Why not? Let's try that again. Okay, this is also interesting. Let's see. Of course, shoot, I forgot something. So back to the Solution Explorer, and now in the Program.cs, one more step, and then we're actually done with the complete boilerplate code. We have to add this DBContext here, of course. So here now with builder services, and then add DBContext of type DataContext. And let's add this here. Now we also add some options, and here we make the connection between the database and the Entity Framework in essence, because here we tell Entity Framework to use the SQL server and also use the default connection string. So yeah, of course, as I said, it is late. So sorry about that. So options, use SQL server, and here now we need Entity Framework Core again. And then with builder configuration, we can get the connection string. This is just shorthand for, you see it here, get section, connection strings, and then name. And here we say default connection. And now I hope this works. .NET EF migrations add initial. Nice. Okay, so this worked now, and now we should see, yeah, our migrations folder with the initial migration, and this just creates the table superheroes with the ID as the primary key, the name, the first name, last name, and the place. Great. And in case we want to remove this migration or roll it back, then it just drops the table, and now we can say .NET EF database update, and with update it also creates the database if it does not exist. There you see all the commands, create table, superheroes, and so on. And now let's get back to Management Studio. We refresh, go to the databases, and there it is. Tables, superheroes, and now we have no superhero here. That's so sad, but we can change that, of course. But first, let's fix our controller real quick with here, with using the context now, right? The data context and Entity Framework Core. As I said, we need a constructor here. So this is now CTOR, and we inject the context, data context, context. We use, yeah, API data, and we initialize this field and add the underscore here. Yes, I know I can configure this with Visual Studio, but I didn't, because, and you can see it here already, there's the next update, and with all the updates it is removed. The configuration for how to write this or how to generate the code for private read-only variable here. If you know how to, well, secure this configuration so with an update it's not gone, please tell me that in the comments. And then I'd love to do this. All right, so now with get superheroes, what we have to do is We do not return our mock superhero list here. Now we just say return OK for the status code 200 and then await context superheroes. That's how we access all our heroes, and then simply to list async. All right. And we, of course, use EditHero core here again. Save this, save everything, and start the app. And now we should not get any hero at all in our application. But let's see if this is really true. So here's Swagger UI. Try this out. Hit execute. No hero here. Nice. And where's Angular? Here it is. Refresh. No hero. But now let's go to Management Studio. We add again Spider-Man, Peter Parker, New York City. And now back to the client, refresh, and there is Spider-Man. Nice. So this works. And now we can actually implement all the other methods, right? So maybe we can start with the controller. And let me implement all our other CRUD operations, meaning create a hero, update a hero, and delete a hero, because this is pretty simple. And then when we got our API, we built the form and all the other stuff to or in the client. And yeah, so we can focus now on the API and then on the client. I think this is a good way. If you don't want to see the API implementations, just skip the chapters here. And then maybe you already have your API and you just want to use Angular to build a simple form for the very first time, for instance. And I think this is also a good way regarding this tutorial. Okay, so first, create a hero. Do this with post. Again, public, async, and so on. And yes, what I want to do is, again, return a list of superheroes, because after, let me rename this, create superhero, because after every action here, I just want to return the complete lists. And then we can use this list to refresh the table then. All right, so we need a superhero here. Another thing we could have used here is a DTO, data transfer object, right? But let's just use the entity here. I think for this quick and dirty, well, it's not that quick, but still for this quick and dirty way, in essence, I think that's okay. Bear with me here, please. I think you know why I'm doing this that way. So how to do this here with EditHero core, we say context superheroes add and then the hero. And if you would use a DTO here, you would first have to map the properties to the actual entity, and then you can add the hero. And here now we just say save changes async. We do this because we, well, changed something in the database. We wanted to add the hero. With that, Entity Framework only knows, okay, this guy wants to add this hero, but he didn't yet. And with save changes, then Entity Framework knows, okay, this guy really wants to add this hero, and writes these changes, store it in the database, and after that we return the complete list of superheroes. And yes, I could have returned refactored this, but I think this is okay. So this is our post method. Now we can create a hero. Now the update method is the most complicated one in this particular case, because we, in essence, we update every single property manually. But this also works. So update superhero hero. I love IntelliSense. It's so great with .NET 6 and C# 10 and Visual Studio 2022. With IntelliCode, sometimes you just hit tab 5 times and your code is written. I don't know if it's really that good that you don't have to type your code, really. What do you think about IntelliCode? Please tell me that in the comments. Would really be interesting. Are you using IntelliCode often, in essence? I don't know. So the very first thing I want to do here now is I want to check if the hero is actually available. So we create our DB hero for the database hero. So is the hero in the database that we want to update? And for that, we try to get the hero with the certain ID here. So find async, and there it was already. Isn't that nice? So hero ID. This is correct. As I said, IntelliCode, crazy. And if the hero is null, we just return a bad request with hero not found. And then if we found our hero, then we say, yep, the first name is the hero first name. The last name is the given hero last name. And the place, finally, is the hero place. After that, again, we have to save our changes. Okay. And then again, we return OK. And then the complete list awaits context superheroes to list async. It is. All right, so this is our update. Again, we try to find the hero with the given ID from this object here, and then we just overwrite every property. All right, of course, there are different ways to do this. If you just want to overwrite one certain property, then this would not work, of course. So here we overwrite everything. I know it is not the best way, but again, for this tutorial, you just want to know how to build an API and connect it with Angular. So I think this works. And the last one now, delete. For that, we use the delete HTTP request method, and we also add a route, and we can do that with these parentheses here. Another way to add a route is actually the same as on top of this controller here. So route, and then in parentheses, the actual thing you want. So then here in quotation marks, right? But we can combine these. So comma, not comma, parentheses, open, and then we only need one parameter, and this is the hero ID here, or just ID. And then again, we have a public async method returning again the complete list, delete superhero with the ID. This works. And again, I can actually copy this. We check if we got the proper ID here, or the proper, yeah, the proper ID, because we want to check if there is a hero with this ID. If not, again, we return a bad request. And otherwise, we say context superheroes remove DB hero. And again, we save all the changes. And again, return all our heroes. Okay, so this is the complete API. Don't worry, I will also put this to push this to GitHub, so you get all the code of the client and the backend here on GitHub. But first, let me test this with Swagger UI. So we have our get method to get all our heroes, right? This is Spider-Man. Great. Now let's add one. Try this out. And we keep it like that. String, 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 string. This is nice. We hit execute. And the ID now is 2. Great. And this hero is called string. First name is string. Last name also string. And he's living in string. Nice. Okay, now let's try to update this guy. Make sure to change the ID to 2. And now this name is string1. Or maybe integer. This would be funny. Okay, string1. There, he or she is. And now let's delete this hero with ID 2. We hit execute, and we only get Spider-Man back. And also in our get method, there it is, it executes. This works. Okay, with that, we are done with the API, I hope. And now we can focus on Angular. So back to Visual Studio Code. There we are. All right, and now the next thing I want to do here is create another component. So with Control and C, we stop the application, and now we have our list here in the app component. And now let's go to our components folder and create an EditHero component. So this will be a really simple form where we can then create a new hero, edit a hero, and also delete one. So with ng-gc this time, so generate component, and then edit hero, and also skip the tests. We create this beautiful new component. All right, and there it is. And let's have a look. Let's close this. EditHero works, nice. And now the very first thing I want to do here is add an input, because with this input, we will, well, input the hero with its data to this EditHero component and also the form, and then we can display all the properties of this hero. So first add inputs, and then the name hero, which can be null actually, and this is a SuperHero, like that. And of course we add another import. Yeah, okay. And then in a couple of minutes we will also add the CRUD operations here, or the calls to the SuperHero service for updating a hero, creating one and deleting one. But first let's move to the HTML where we create our form. All right, so now we start with a little div. Close this div. And now when we actually have a hero, all right, then we display first the name. And yes, by the way, if you know this, there is a tutorial in the Angular documentations. This is kind of similar here. The Tour of Heroes tutorial with the hero editor. So if you want to have a deeper look, maybe this is a good address here for you. You see it here as well. This is, yeah, I stole this one here. Okay, the H2, the header, but then changed a little bit, and actually already did the SuperHero tutorials for the .NET Web API without the Angular tutorial. But what a coincidence. Well, people like superheroes, I guess. So this works for a couple of people, and this is really, really nice. So again, back to the code. We've got our header here, and what I want to do is simply display the hero name. So that's that. And then now let's just add a div for the name and an input. And this is now interesting because we will use two-way binding here with for the ng model. So this just means for the event and for the value, both is bound here. So with ng model and then hero name, we can actually say whatever the user is entering here, this will be stored in the actual variable or the actual object. And let's just add a placeholder here as well. This is the name. All right. Why is it not working like that? Because we cannot bind to ng model. It's not known. And to be able to use it, we have to add our forms module here. So below the HTTP client module, we add our forms module. Now it's imported, and we go back, and now the error is gone. Isn't that nice? All right, so now let's just copy this for the first name, the last name, and the place. First name, placeholder doesn't really make sense here, but anyways, let's just use it. Last name and place shall be the last thing, and also here. What's that? Oh, quotation marks missing. All right, so that's the these are the inputs, and now we need also some buttons. So what I want to do is again enable the user to update a hero, to create a hero, and also delete a hero. So there are actually 3 buttons we can add here. So button it is, and the first one on the click event, we will call a method that is not there yet, of course. Update hero with this hero here, and this shall only be displayed if we have a hero ID. All right, remember, lowercase I. And when we go back to our hero model, this thing is nullable. And if you do not have an ID, this just means that we want to create a new hero here. So this button will not be displayed. Call this save. And then copy this because I also want to add a delete method here. So delete hero and call this delete. And now for creating, so create hero, we will just check if we have a hero ID. All right, so this is now our complete form. And to fix these errors, let's just add the methods real quick. So we've got update hero with hero. All right, and then also delete and create, delete hero and create hero. Okay, so these are the ones, error is gone. And now let's add this form to our app component. So we've got our table here. First thing on top that we can use is actually a button to create a new hero or initialize a new hero. So with a button and then click, and in this case, init new hero, we create a new hero. And now to edit a hero, we actually need another button here. So let's add another column with a button. And here now on click, I want to call another method called EditHero with the current hero. Let's just use edit here. This should work. And now down here, again, we add the other component. So with app edit hero, we set the hero to the current hero we want to edit. So let's call this then hero to edit. And of course, we add this guy in our app component TS. So up here now, hero to edit is a SuperHero. And then again, when you have a look, we've got our edit hero method and the init hero method. So back to the component TS, we say init new hero simply says that this hero to edit is a new SuperHero, and edit hero SuperHero just says that this hero to edit is this hero. All right, let's save this and let's just have a quick look. Restart. Is it running actually? I'm not sure about, no, it's not running. So ng-serve it is. All right, there it is. Let's open the console. And now let's just have a look. We want to edit Spider-Man. There's our form with Spider-Man, name, first name, and so on. And we can save and delete. Of course, there is no call done for now. And we can also say create a new hero. And this guy then is actually has no name and so on. Okay, and I think Iron Man is written like that, right? All right. Okay, so this works so far. This is nice, and it looks really nice. And now what would be the next step? Well, we have to make some calls, right? So when we close this, we see we can initialize this, we can edit the hero, that's nice. But this is just working locally. And you can also, by the way, see the two-way binding here, right? So I wrote Iron Man, and we already see the name here as well in the header. And this was actually when AngularJS came out, and I saw this for the very first time. This was just mind blown, right? because before you really had to use, well, maybe jQuery or Vanilla.js to update this by yourself, and with AngularJS and Knockout.js actually a bit earlier, and these bindings was just a great moment to see this. And now with Angular and React and all the other stuff, and of course Blazor, which I'm a big fan of, well, this is just standard nowadays. But still, it's great. It's great how web development gets better and better. Okay, so long story short, let's add the final touches here. We've got our app component TS, we've got our EditHero component here. Now we have to write these methods. And what do we want to do here? Actually, we just want to call our service and make the web service calls. So let me first add the other methods. So maybe first the update hero. Again, always returning an array of superheroes actually. So we can refresh our table, but now we use put for the update, and the URL is the same, but we add an object here. So this one is missing, hero superhero, and here we just add our hero. So this is our update method, right? Now let's copy this and use create hero. Again, also we need a hero here, but the method now is post, and the rest is exactly the same. And now for deleting, we just use delete superhero, for instance, delete, and we still need a hero here, but we are using the ID here of this object. So delete superhero with the hero object, and here now no object in this call, but the ID in the complete URL then. All right, and that's it. This is the service, and now we use our EditHero component to call the service. And what I then want to do is I want to refresh the table. I already told you that, but to be able to do this, we need an output parameter so that an event is emitted, raised, whatever. And then the parent component, our app component, then knows, okay, something has been changed, so let's refresh our table. So first the output component, component parameter, output heroes updated, new event emitter of type superhero array. All right, so this is what will happen, what we want to use here. And now first we need our service, so the private superhero service of type superhero service. And now here we say this superhero service update hero with the given hero subscribe, and then our heroes, and here we say this heroes updated emit with our heroes. And we can of course add the type here. This is a superhero array. Nice. All right, and now for the other methods, create hero and delete superhero. Can we rename this? Delete hero. All right. Nice. Okay, this should be it actually. Let me just double check. Got our constructor, it's injected. We got the output parameter. Update hero, delete hero, create hero. Yeah, looks okay, I guess. And now back to our app component. First the TS. We need another method here now for the event. So let's call this update hero list. We get the updated heroes. And then we say this heroes is the given hero list. Almost. All right, and now in the HTML, we write heroes updated, update hero list with the event. All right, this should be it. Let's see. Is it did it actually rebuild? I think so. Say edit, and this is now Amazing Spider-Man. Save. Yeah, well, we don't see anything here, but it is saved. This is nice. Now let's create another one. Again, Iron Man. First name is Tony, last name is Stark, place is Malibu. The create button is missing here. Nice. No, not here. Here, actually. Oh, it's just called delete, not create. Okay, let's do this again. Now it's called create. Nice. Okay. Iron Man, Tony Stark, living in Malibu. Create. Yes, that's it. Now we've got Iron Man as well. Let's have a look here at the network tab. This is the post call with our payload and the preview ID3 because we had the string 1 hero before. Nice. And yeah, now we can also delete this guy. It's gone and we get all our heroes back. Maybe we can create it again. Well, you know this. You can double check. You can check this by yourself. Just wanted to show you the hero as well here in the database. But here you see the change with Spider-Man. So this is now Amazing Spider-Man. This worked, and well, let's just because it's so much fun. Of course, have to add this guy. Okay, let's create it. There is Bruce Wayne. And we can also execute the SQL command and we see Batman here. Nice. All right. Almost 1.5 hours, but maybe it's only almost 1.5 hours. And then you have your web API with the, well, basic CRUD operations and also an Angular client application with also pretty basic CRUD operations and a pretty basic form, but still this works and now you can make it better. All right, so check out the codes. The link for the GitHub repository is in the video description below, and please feedback. I'd love to see any comments, and if you want to see more .NET, of course, but also maybe Angular, maybe React, the same tutorial with React would be interesting, I guess. So that would be something for another tutorial. And apart from that, that's it for this tutorial now. There you have it. Isn't that a great design for a user interface, right? Still, with that, you get the Angular client, Angular 14 client, and a .NET 6 web API on the other side, on the back end, and also a database, the SQL Server database, and access the data with, and modify the data with Entity Framework Core 6. Isn't that great? So this is the full stack. It's a simple application, of course, but I think this is a great start if you want to do more with Angular and .NET 6. It's a great stack in my opinion, does work pretty nice, and we do that at work all the time. If you like this and learned something, thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and also don't forget to hit the bell icon to get a notification as soon as I upload a new video. Currently every Tuesday, that's the date for a new video, and this works pretty nice. So again, thanks for that. Also again, the newsletter, maybe this is interesting for you if you want to get these videos earlier in your inbox, and also other stuff like early access to the upcoming online courses like the .NET Web Developer Bootcamp, then consider subscribing to my newsletter. Thanks again. And last not least, again, thank you so much for the tea or the coffee or the water. It's also very important. Drink water, people. It's good to be hydrated. So thank you very much for all your support. And now this shall be it for this tutorial. But if you want to see more, check out these videos here on the side. Would really appreciate it if you stay a little. Let's have a chat and watch more videos. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.